What's up, gamers? Koobs here. Welcome to the video. Thanks so much for stopping by the channel. Really excited about this one today because starting today, August 5th, until I believe it's going to be September 2nd, which is the first Tuesday in September, you can download Lies of P for free if you're a PlayStation Plus member. You just have to have the basic, the essential membership. You don't need premium or extra in order to download it. It's going to be one of the 3 games in the rotation for this month, and I highly recommend at the very least just adding this to your library. Even if you can't get to it right now, even if it takes you a few months or even a year to get to it, it's going to be definitely well worth your time when you do. In my opinion, it's a masterpiece of a game, absolute 10 out of 10. I'm a little bit biased because I love this genre of game, and I think that they've done a lot to kind of separate themselves from the traditional Souls-likes while also kind of taking a lot of inspiration from those games. And one of the biggest things that I wanted to touch on and talk about while I possibly have you here today are some of the quality of life improvements that they've added to the game that I really appreciate because they respect your time as the player. So the first thing I want to touch on is going to be the difficulty settings that they added. When Lies of P Overture was released a few months ago, they introduced new difficulty settings. So the base setting, the default that the original base game was played on, was the Legendary Stalker difficulty. So this is going to be as hard as it gets. This is going to be the authentic Lies of P experience. If you want to play the game how it was designed and released, you can play on Legendary Stalker, but then they've also added 2 easier difficulty options here in the form of Awakened Puppet and Butterfly's Guidance. I really appreciate these because, again, it just kind of respects your time as a player. Maybe you don't have 3 or 4 hours to go up against the same boss until you finally overcome that obstacle, and you still want to experience the game for the story and for the gameplay and the different systems that are in place here. So you can lower the difficulty, kind of tailor the experience to your liking, and I think that that's just a really great thing overall. For myself, when I went into the Lies of P Overture expansion, my character was already level 125. I was in New Game Plus, and so I wasn't sure what that experience was going to be like for me. Was it going to be too difficult? Was it going to be, overly hard, given the fact that I was an experienced player with an experienced character who was leveled up? So what I did was I played on the Butterfly's Guidance difficulty, so I made it a little bit easier for myself in that regard, but then I was able to impose certain challenging limitations on myself. So like the fact that my character started at level 125 and he finished at level 125. So throughout my entire playthrough of the expansion, I never leveled up my character, which would have given me more health or more damage or more stamina, what have you. And then I also decided to play with no HUD. And so this kind of added some limitations in the fact that I have less information about things. I don't necessarily know how much health I have after I get hit. I don't necessarily know how many different healing items I have at my disposal. So I was able to tailor my experience to my liking, and that's one of the things that I really appreciated about it. The next thing I want to touch on is the leveling up system. So when we go to level up, the currency that we acquire is called Ergo. So in the top corner, you can see the amount of Ergo that I currently have. So I have 15,000. I can see over here to the left-hand side that it says that it requires 16,000 Ergo to get a level up. And instead of having to go out of this menu screen and into my inventory screen to see what sort of resources I have that I can add to my current total, I can just do that in one click of a button. I can click the right thumbstick, and this is going to pull up all of my held Ergo. So all of my fragments and chunks that I can add to my disposal are listed right here. I can add them individually, and then as I do, it's going to tell me my new total as well as give me an indicator of how many level ups that would afford me. So I could add these 13 or 14 chunks. That's going to give me an additional 3 levels. I can add these crystals, and that's going to get me to 5 level ups. Here I can get 7 level ups, right? 10 level ups. So you can do all of this really easily. It's really simplistic, user-friendly. You don't have to go back and forth between different menus. You don't have to do mental math of how many more of these crystals do I need to cash in before I can get my next level up. It's just simplified and right here, and I really love and appreciate this addition. I think that the leveling up in general is pretty simplified. We have vitality, which correlates to our health. We have vigor that correlates to our stamina, capacity, which is basically how much our character can carry, as well as legion, which is basically a resource for our legion arm, which I'll talk about briefly here. Motivity is strength, technique is dexterity, and advance is basically like our elemental damage ability. So it really kind of streamlined system here. It covers all of the necessary functions without being too superfluous, which I really, again, just appreciate. When it comes to our Legion arm, in the base game, we've got 8 Legion arms that we can unlock along the way. And then the DLC added 2 more. And these are just different ways to engage with the game and add another level of like flavor and variety to our character. We have one here that allows us to do like an electrical discharge. Flamberge is basically a flamethrower. And then the puppet string here, which is kind of cool. We have the puppet string, which will allow us to either pull ourselves to enemies, or it'll allow us to pull enemies towards us. Just really cool in the way that they design these systems to kind of engage with the player. That again, I'm just a huge fan of. Gonna go back to our Stargazer here, because the next thing I want to touch on briefly is the weapon system. So throughout the game, most of the weapons that we come across are going to be made up of 2 parts. So our weapons are made up of a blade and a handle. So we can disassemble these weapons. I can take this weapon apart if I wanted to. And then I have all of these parts and pieces of different weapons that I can then put together and assemble. So let's say I'm going to grab this military shovel blade, and maybe this pistol rock drill handle. I'm going to assemble this into a new weapon, and now I have a totally new and unique weapon that's going to play completely different than some of the other weapons that I might have assembled before. I really like this system because, again, it takes what would be otherwise maybe 30 weapons that the game has to offer, and it expands that into hundreds of different options for you to customize and figure out what works for you. So here we've got a shovel that's more of like a spear, and then the handle has different abilities and attacks at its disposal. We also have what's called the Fable, which are basically these bonus attacks that you can do. So each blade and each handle has a different Fable ability. So here, this one spins us around, different things like that. Really cool and innovative system when it comes to the weapons in the game. And then there are some other weapons that are, you know, this weapon, it's not customizable, it doesn't break in half, but it does a specific thing. So there are all of these boss weapons that you'll come across throughout the game that they have unique move sets, they have unique abilities, unique properties to them. And again, it just kind of adds to the variety, the customization, the player expression that you have at your disposal. I'm also a huge fan of the way that the armor system is designed. So rather than armor being tied to a specific piece of gear that your character wears, it's all into these defensive parts. So we have frames that dictate our physical damage reduction. We have converters that increase our resistance to elemental damage. We have cartridges which basically defend against different status elements, so like shock or break. And then we have our armor liners, which basically give us different defensive reduction to piercing or slashing attacks and things like that. But because all of these systems are wrapped up into these different parts, it allows us to express ourselves how we like to when it comes to our fashion. So we have tons of outfits for our character to choose from that we can unlock throughout the game. We have different accessories, different hats and masks that we can work with. So you can kind of figure out what your character looks like. And your character is going to be very different from my character, even though we still have basically the same base template that we're starting from. So again, just a really great way for the game to be designed in that sort of sense. It allows you to express yourself how you would like to, rather than, you know, funneling you into a specific box. And then one of the last things I wanted to touch on here is when it comes to the quest system in the game. So a lot of these Souls-likes, they don't really give you a journal that lists all of your side quests and doesn't have map markers to tell you exactly where things are. So sometimes it can be kind of convoluted and difficult to follow, which often leads to people looking up guides to figure out where they need to go next. But one of the things that I like about Lies of P is that they've added this system to the game where when you go to teleport to another stargazer, it'll bring up the screen of all the locations that you've been to. You can travel back to them, but it'll have a little icon if there's an objective there. If there's a point of interest, whether it's somebody for you to talk to, which is going to advance a plot line, or if there's something in a specific location that you can go to and find. And I just think that that's really great. Again, overall, the game just seems to appreciate your time. It's not trying to be needlessly convoluted in the ways that some of the games in the past have been. And I think that overall, it's just really fantastic design. I'm not going to talk too much about the combat system today because I think a lot of that is going to be more intuitive. When you get into the game, you'll kind of figure that out for yourself. But there's a block and parry system, so you can perfectly parry attacks, which means that you won't take any damage if you time it correctly. You can also just block attacks, and if you block an attack, you're still going to take damage, but it'll give you a window of opportunity where you can deal damage to get that health back. So basically a rally system that was kind of introduced in Bloodborne, and it's kind of incorporated in this sort of way where it's not when you take all damage, it's only when you actively block the damage that you can then rally and get that health back, which I think is really great. Really cool finishing moves, so you can sneak up behind people and do a finisher, and all of the enemies have this basically a built-in stagger meter, and so as you deal heavy damage to them, you'll open up a stagger window where you can then deal a fatal attack to them. And just really cool. The combat feels great, it looks great, and just overall, I think that this is such a fantastic game. I'm so excited that they're giving this out for free, because this is one of those games that I feel like every gamer should experience. It's just such a well-polished, from start to finish, the game, the themes, the different concepts that they're playing with here between puppets, what makes you a puppet, what makes you a human. Such a fantastic experience. So highly recommend you give it some time if you're able to, but again, at the very least, add this thing to your library so that it's in your back catalog of games, so that later down the line you can jump in and play it. I think that the base game is well worth standing on its own, but if you can afford it, definitely recommend the Overture expansion as well. It'll probably go on sale maybe around the holidays or something like that. So I mean, man, for free, this is a fantastic game, and highly recommend you jump into it. I want to say thank you for being here. If you've clicked on the video, if you've liked the video, really appreciate you, and I hope that you have an awesome day. I have been and always will be Coobs. Man, I can't believe Lies of Free, gamers, Lies of Free. Peace and love, everybody.